morning, brewers. Now, if you haven't seen one of my brew days before, I thought today I would take you through in a bit more detail all my steps that I go through to make my beer. So, step one is so I have my grain father and my Sparge water heater, and I rinse them. So rinsing also involves rinsing the pump, and I do that with my plugging a hose. So I rinse with warm water, and you can see coming out the bottom, just to make sure there's nothing left in the pump from the last brew. The grain father is rinsed. Next step, this. Make sure you put your pump screen or filter screen on before filling it. I put all my brew day water in the grain father because I've got a wheeled stand for my grain father, which is a lot easier to get around than my urn. I just bring my urn for Sparge water heater in here to rinse out in preparation for the brew day. So I'll fill this to the top, and that should give me enough water. Anything that I'm short in my Sparge water heater, I top up just with a jug. I'll be back in a few minutes when we're full. The next thing I do is hook this up to my mains. Now the grain father cord is not long at all. It's usually frustrating getting it to reach a power point. So I went and bought myself a 15 amp extension lead, and now so I get good power through this, and I get the full 2000 watts when I'm boiling. So now so I've got it full, and I turn the pump on because it heats the water faster. And it also helps if there's any chlorine gas left in the water treatment, it helps get rid of that. So when I'm heating my water, I make sure it's on normal, so that's the 2000 watt going. And today we're making a oatmeal stout, so I set my temperature. I'm going to do a 60-minute mash at 69 degrees to get some full body. And flick it to mash. And I'll be back when we're at target temperature, and that's when I'll transfer my hot water to the Sparge water heater as well. Okay. It's pretty close to strike temp now, so time to fill my hot water urn for the Sparge water. Now the pH of the water is not too bad, but so I'm not going to add any salts today because we're brewing a stout, an oatmeal stout, and that's going to have a pretty low pH anyway. We'll test the pH, of course, and just see if we need to add anything, but I think we'll be right, and we'll get between that 5.2, 5.4 range. But I do like to add a tiny bit of acid to my Sparge water to make sure the pH isn't too high towards the end of the Sparge. So you don't need a lot to drop the pH. No, yeah. So as you saw, that was just 4 little sprinkles. And that'll drop the pH of this to probably at 6.5, maybe a bit lower. And I only know it because I've done it so many times. But the purpose of that is to make sure, especially with darker beers, you're not stripping too many astringencies with the pH being too high and the temperature also being high. Both things are working against your favour when if you're stripping out astringencies from the husks. Alright, so I'm going to get the volumes right, and then you'll see me at mashing. Here's my Sparge water heater. and I don't know if you can see, but so that dot, that little press is supposed to be the temperature you're supposed to hit, but as you can see I've had to adjust it over time to the dark felt pen line, so that's where 76, 77 degrees. So I've got an old hose that I've just never taken off. That was back in the day when I was gravity fed brewing or using a 3-tier system, and that used to feed directly onto my fly sparge. Okay, so we're about to drop in our grain basket, and the thing to remember when you're dropping this in is to just watch. So they've got a new design, they've got a rubber seal around it. I bought this Grainfather as the first series to come to Australia, but the never came with a rubber seal, and the size of the plate is actually too large to fit a rubber seal on, and I've cut a couple trying to get one on there. But anyway, when you put it in, make sure it stays at the bottom and doesn't float up, so when you add your first lot of grains, they don't fly, they don't go straight through and hit the bottom. Okay, so we're at strike temp. Let's mash in. Got a little bit of help here today, so apologies for the noise. Oh.
That's all the grain.
Here's our grain, good crack. Okay, you're going to stir in?
Yep.
Okay.
In they go! How is it gonna look?
Stir it.
Start to stir. Imagine just pouring all the grains in at once. What would happen?
You usually get stuck dough balls, which is why we add our grains really slow. That's a good question to ask. So after we add all our barley and wheat, we're going to add some toasted oats.
Which are those things?
If you want to see how I prepared my toasted oats, just keep watching. Alright, trying to toast some oats today. So I've got the oven at 175, and I've got 1 pound or 450 grams of flaked oats. I'm just going to toast them for about 10 minutes to try and bring out some of those flavours for this oatmeal stout. I've just got this pasta scoop to sort of rake the oats. They've been in for about 5 minutes and they are starting to smell really, the smell's starting to come out. So another 5 and I think they'll be done. It's a bit thicker than I thought it would have been, so they may not all roast evenly, but I'm just trying to get a bit of oatmeal flavour. The nutty flavour that comes out after you toast them a bit for this oatmeal stout. Back in the oven. So I ended up going for about 15 minutes because I gave them a couple of tosses just to try and get more of an even flavour colour throughout, but it smells... The smell is so much more powerful now, so I'm hoping that, because it only forms about, I think, about 15% of the grist for the stout, and you can see that some of them are brown, some of them are still white, and that should balance it out. So while some might be overdone, the others are not. So yeah, have a look in the corner, some of those really dark brown bits. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes, because I really rate the mouthfeel that oats give a beer, and I'm looking forward to seeing if we can add a bit more flavour with them too, just by putting them in the oven for 15 minutes. Alright, back to the brew day.
Here, I want to do it. You pour the grains in.
Okay. I'll take it over now.
I want to do it.
Hold on, just let me. Just let me.
I have strong muscles to do it.
There's the toasted oats. You can see that there's a bit more colour than just plain old quick oats. Okay. Well,
Wait.
Claire, get your hand out. No, don't touch. Okay, put them in. Click and out.
Is that enough?
No, all of it. There. So we've got,
Now can I make?
hold on, honey. Let me mix it in.
Oh, yours tastes quite good after a little bit. I'm a big girl, Ryan. Ryan, I'm bigger.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're all mashed in. Let's get the mash pH. Yeah. 5.1. So I'm not going to add any chalk. I think 5.1 will be okay.
Hello.
Yeah, I think 5.1 will be okay. So we'll turn on the... I don't put the top plate on or anything like that for the first few minutes. And we'll turn the pump on and get this recirculating. One thing I do is try and wash down the sides. Wash down the sides of all the starches. It's not really to try and get more sugars. It's just if I wash it off, it makes it easier to clean. So I leave the top plate off for the first half hour of a 60-minute mash, and I stir it a few times, increase the efficiency, get more sugars out. So you'll see what I do. I'll bring you back every time I do it. So it's been about 10 minutes. Just going to stir the grain bed up, and that stirs the grain bed, more work contact with the water. More grain contact with the water, and you do extract more sugars. I know I can. I got mine bumped my extract efficiency up by at least 5% by doing it, and I do it about 3 times in the first half hour of the mash. And then I put the top plate on to settle the grain bed out and to get that wort nice and clear. Not that it'll really matter with a stout. And I do that about every 10 minutes until the first half hour or the final half hour's reached, just in case I'm doing a 90-minute mash. I believe I forgot to talk about the grain bill. So it's 70% Gladfield ale malt, 11% flaked oats, 10% roasted wheat, 5% medium crystal, and 5% roast barley. Now, I wouldn't copy my stout recipe. I just don't have enough experience. This is probably my 3rd ever all grain stout. But yeah, so 2019, devoting to sort of dark British and Irish beers. Okay, it's been 30 minutes. Time to put the top plate on and give it one last stir. So when you put the top plate on, you do have to turn the pump off, and you'll see the see it drain clear. Yeah, time you can pull it out. Lift the grain bed one last time. The flies are about, so they like the smell. So before you put this on, just make sure you wet it, because it will stick otherwise. Now the flow rate seems to be going pretty well, so I don't think there's a need to take the stopper out. And just to the top, we put the back in. Now I'm just turning the grain basket a bit, so because I don't want it to create a channel. So I'm using the little weld for the handle as a bit of a baffle to divert the flow. And it's not really filling up beyond that, so that's good. We should see some nice clear some nice clear wort, as black as it's going to be, but at least it will filter out a lot of that haze that after stirring the grain bed that you get. So that'll go for another half an hour now. Same temperature, 69. We want a full body out of this stout. Get some nice sweetness. Should get some of those lovely nutty aromas from the toasted oatmeal too. Toasted oats. So, alright, we'll see you in half an hour when we get to, well, we do the mash out temp, where we up the temperature to 76 degrees. And the purpose of that is to deactivate the enzymes that convert the starches into sugars. So we want to stop them working, and we do that at 76. Okay, it's been an hour. Time to mash out. So as I said, we'll go up to 70, might go to 77. And I flick it to the 2000 watt normal setting to get there faster. Okay, we're at mash out temperature now. Still recirculating, and we'll leave that for 10 minutes at 77 degrees. Okay, so that's the end of the mash out. Turn the pump off. I just drop it in a bucket of water, as you saw, and time to lift the grain basket and see how we're going for flow. It started to slow down a bit. I sort of expected it with about, what was it, 11%, 11% oats. Oh no, that's not bad. You can hear the water flowing through pretty quickly. You can see those handles coming up to show. I'll just go get my first jug of mash water. Now with the sparging, I've read that you should always keep some water about an inch above the grain bed, and others to let the grain bed like empty right out. But to be honest, I think the results are comparable, so I just sort of do whatever comes on the day. The one thing I am going to try though is extending my sparge time. So I've got a sparge for 15 litres, and I'm just going to see if I extend it out to make it go for, I don't know, 25-30 minutes to see if that generates any better extract efficiency. Going to give it a try, but I won't hold you. So the first one, I have to pour 15 litres. It's a 1 litre jug. I do the same thing 15 times, pour the water over, I'll come and get you back when I throw in the first lot of hops. So one of the things I do to get a little bit more fluid out of the grain bed is just push it down right towards the end, and you just get a little bit more out of the grain bed. Not much, but what you also get as a bonus is not as much mess when you take the grain basket out. Anyway, I don't do it for too long. It sounds like most of the water's come out of this already. You can see a little bit squeezed out, and if you watch, it'll slowly filter back down through the grain bed, and we'll go to making our precious beer. So we're nearly at the boil, and we're about to throw in our first hop addition. So here's the 60-minute boil addition. I know we're not quite to boil, but I don't mind sort of, while it's not technically first wort hopping, it's not boil hopping, it's somewhere in between, doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to get the bitterness. 15 grams of North Down hops. I recommend using a hop spider with the grain father. I know it says you don't need one, but you get a lot less worry when you use it. The other thing I do is, while it's coming to the boil, is making sure that there's not too much grain left in the wort. And this also, as I pour the wort through the hop filter, through the hop spider, it's also getting more bitterness out of the hops, so it comes into contact with more wort. Get a sample to see how much sugar I got out of it. So there's 15 minutes left in the boil. There's some yeast nutrient and also some, what am I thinking of here? Whirlfloc. Whirlfloc, I know it's a stout, but I'm just trying to collect the proteins from all the oats that were in there, so that's why they go in. And 20 grams of EKG hops. And the other thing I do at 15 minutes is turn on my counterflow or my pump to sanitize my counterflow chiller. Okay, so the end of the boil. So one thing I do is take out the hop spider. Don't want any more bitterness going in from the hop leaf. Of course, the oils should all be in solution by now, so they'll probably contribute a little bit more bitterness. But what I'm going to do now is, I've had some good results in keeping the protein out of the fermenter from the cold break by doing it inside the main grain father vessel. I recirculate the wort while it's cooling, and that gets me a cleaner break, and there's more trube left at the bottom. Okay, so we're at 35 degrees now. We realistically won't get much cooler than that with the groundwater we've got here, and so I'm just going into the fermenters, and I'm doing a split batch. So in one of the batches I'm just going to do a taste comparison between the one of my favourite yeasts, the SO4, and the London Ale 3, which I think goes really well with stouts, but I want to see which one's better. So yeah, I'll let you know how they go in a tasting. I hope you enjoyed the full brew day, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!